Hello to you all and welcome to another instalment of the Pitcast by us here at the Pit Crew Online, from the fans for the fans. This episode is coming to you from our Crew on Two department, and we are the two-wheel division of the Pit Crew Online. We cover bike-related motorsport, and we aim to keep you up to date with the latest information on what is happening both on and off the track. My name is Karen Bristow, and I'm your host today. I am the editor for Crew on Two, and I cover World Superbikes, and I write under the name of Biker Kaz. So who else have we got joining us today?
Hi, I'm Taras, and I shadow edit Crew on Two and do graphics and other things. My Twitter username is CrustyLicious.
My name is Luca. I've been featured very prominently on the Pitcast, including the first ever installment of it, and I've been pushing for a motorcycle coverage variant through Crew on Two for a while now. We finally got our front wheel off the ground, to use a motorcycle pun.
I like that. Now, motorsport in general has restarted with both car racing and motorbikes. And motorbike racing has got off to a really great start in the last couple of weeks. We've had MotoGP, British Superbikes, World Superbikes, and weekend just gone, we've had Oliver's Mount. So really busy time at the moment. Obviously with the situation that's been going on, everything was cancelled and put on hold. And now everyone is trying to get in as many races as they can before the end of the year. So how that pans out, we will wait to see, because obviously everything that is scheduled now is all sort of subject to change at the last minute. So should we start with MotoGP? And that race at the weekend at Jerez.
That still gives me nightmares. That really did. You've seen two bikes crash and go back onto a circuit before. We've seen that hundreds of times. Well, I wouldn't say 100 times, but quite a few times. And yes, your heart stops. You think, pray nothing happens. But that crash was unbelievable. I don't know how to describe it. You have to see it rather than just describe it, because you can't. And Rossi's face, you just saw him age instantly.
Yeah. And
still continue to age while he was thinking. it was just unbelievable.
It was absolutely terrifying to see those bikes just hurtling towards other racers, and there's nothing that they could do, really. It was just in the lap of the gods, I think.
Well, I think that was always going to happen. Well, not that particular accident. I always thought we're going to have something nasty happen. And you don't want to think like that, but given that we've had an extended leave of racers, and you become a bit relaxed, and when you do a couple of races, which I had done, you become overconfident, and that was always going to happen, a bad crash, and lucky no one was majorly hurt, which is always a thankful thing with MotoGP and any bike racing, because they've got literally nothing to protect themselves with.
No. Although Zarco is having surgery tomorrow, as it turns out he's got a fracture on his right hand. But I think really he got off lightly. It could have been so much worse.
Well, Mark hasn't got off so lightly, and his was nowhere near it. And this is the problem with crashes. You can have something like Sunday's crash, which is just a hand fracture, compared to what happened with Mark, which is less exciting, if you want to put it, but less dangerous. All crashes are dangerous. And he's now off probably for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, he's had to have 2 operations now, hasn't he? And I think going back too soon obviously didn't do it any good.
Well, when you're in your 20s, you just think you're immune to it happening to you, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, you're invincible, aren't you, at that age?
Well, Mark thought he was invincible, and I think his ridings show that, which has been exciting, obviously, but there's limits to it. And we always said that world phase of only Mark can stop Mark. Unfortunately, it has happened. Well, a window stopped Mark, actually. But no, it's it, you always thought that was going to happen, and it's a shame in a way, but it's made the series and the championship wide open, and we're seeing what the other manufacturers can do. And they've sort of pushed forward, I think, this year because of it.
Yes, yeah, and it's interesting that Dovey Izozo, I'll call him
Sure,
Dovey.
so.
Thank
Just
you.
call him Dovey. Dovey it show. Yeah, but no, Dovey is, Luca, he's been in there with Ducati for what 7-8 years now. He's for 3 years running second in the championship. I mean, that's a hard thing to deal with, isn't it?
Well, yeah, whenever you're the bridesmaid and never the bride, it's always weighs on your mind. Dovizioso has had a bit of an open goal this year with Marquez falling at the first hurdle, and now I know he one by one he just keeps dropping out of the Grand Prix beforehand. He obviously tried to ride for the Andalusian Grand Prix at Jerez for the second round of the season. And we all seem to think after the first two races that Quartararo was going to be the one to dethrone the absentee Marquez. But as is ever the case in MotoGP, and this is why I believe it's, even as a car racing fan, motorcycle racing is superior in every way, because we've had not only Quartararo winning races, but we had Brad Binder on a KTM winning in the Czech Republic, and then in Austria, Dovizioso. We have to at some point got to sit back and just admire the fact that motorcycle racing allows for these opportunities, and it's remarkable to see so many potential winners on the grid now. Because I mean, yeah, being a Lewis Hamilton fan, he's winning all the time. I know it's definitely going to bore a lot of neutrals. So me seeing Marquez winning all the time, I don't necessarily dislike the guy, and I'm obviously hoping for the best in his recovery. But I am relishing the opportunity to see now someone other than Marquez winning it. So if that makes me a hypocrite, yeah, so be it. So going back to Davizio, so I would like to Quartararo, Vinales, they probably could be they have many years ahead. Dovizioso, though, he really needs to win this championship because he's always been second best for so many years.
Okay.
I don't think. Sorry.
Carry on.
Sorry. I was going to say I don't think Dobby's going to win it this year. He wants to win it, but I just don't think he's got it in him. I think he saw that he has these highs and lows. The last 3 years, you've seen that. But I think Morbidelli is another one to look for and look towards. Binder maybe, but the Binder brothers have always had this problem that they just crash, and it's a shame because they got the ability to win. But also, as you say, Quartararo is probably going to win it. It's between him and Dovey, I think. But let's see. What do you think, Karen?
Yeah, I think Dovey is good, but after last weekend, Binder winning the race, he was so pleased, and so were KTM, and I would really like to see him win. But yeah, we'll see. It's early days yet, isn't it?
It's interesting with KTM. They've had the extras, the extra packages what we had because they haven't run anything. But now they are winning stuff. They have actually got an engine freeze. That's one of the limitations. They might actually, I don't know the actual technicalities of it, but if they swap to able to upgrade that engine, they might just even win a few more races.
Yeah, we'll see. But we're back at Austria again this weekend coming, and then we're off to Italy at the beginning of September. So it will be interesting to see how that turns out. If we move on to road racing, Oliver's Mount took place this weekend for the Barry Sheen Classic race, where both two-stroke and four-stroke bikes from 250cc through to superbikes took part. The Barry Sheen Classic race was named after the legend himself, who made his debut at Scarborough in 1970, winning his first race on a 125cc Suzuki, which is very interesting. I haven't had the pleasure of going to Oliver's Mount, but that's definitely on my list to go and see. And it's I don't know if you know, it's a 2.43 mile track and is regarded as a challenging, tight and twisty circuit. Have you guys been to Oliver's Mount? Luca?
So I do live quite near to Oliver's Mount, but road racing for me has never interested me, not because I don't find it fascinating. I've never been able to muster up the strength in my stomach to watch that. I have so much respect. It's not just, obviously, not just road racing, guys. Obviously, circuit racing, as we established from last weekend's Austrian MotoGP. When it goes wrong, it can go very wrong, which only makes my respect for them higher even more. Living near Oliver's Mount, I also subsequently live quite close to Sean Muir Racing, who ran Josh Brooks in British Superbikes 2015, the year he won the title, and I think they currently run in World Superbikes under the BMW factory team. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Tom Sykes and Eugene Laverty could ride for them at the moment. I might be wrong. And they subsequently race in these road races, Isle of Man, Macau, Northwest 200, Ulster. So I'm very much aware of them. Never really watched them myself. And when I had the pleasure to go down to Sean Muir's factory, and because my dad's friendly with someone who works there, and we got talking about road racing. I pleaded at my ignorance on road racing, but I knew that it was much more dangerous than circuit racing. And the guy there said, yeah, often we do go to the Isle of Man and come back without our rider because the rider has an accident and dies. But so if I don't know if I'll ever want to go to Oliver's Mount. I've seen like the layout of it on Wikipedia, and it looks like a traditional, circuit, with like, you would think with like the likes of gravel traps and all that, but apparently it's not even like that. And I'm going to plead ignorance on this as well because I don't know a lot about it, unfortunately. But I would say that if you're a road racing fan, you live around here, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't go, frankly, because I hear it is quite a spectacle.
And Taras, have you been to the Isle of Man TT and have you managed to get there at all?
I haven't actually, but I'm looking forward to the Isle of Wight version. But coming back to the, that's in the early stages. So we don't know if it's going to go ahead properly at all. Like everything at the moment, everything's up in the air. But I've actually, with the TT, I actually prefer watching it on the TV rather than going there. So no, I haven't been there. And in terms of road racing, I've only really ever enjoyed the TT and Macau, actually, because Macau's Macau and it's just a unique circuit and you love it for all the reasons that you shouldn't actually like it. But the point is, I think in some ways there's so many bike formulas, you end up being in a situation you like one and not the other and sort of half look at something. And like Luca, I will have the ignorance factor on it that I haven't done enough and looked at that. But it's a whole different category and it is as big as MotoGP. So
yes. Yeah, unfortunately it was cancelled this year due to everything that's been happening, but it has been rescheduled for next year, but there was talk of it not happening, so fingers crossed it does. But the classic TT race as well was due to take place at the end of this month, end of August, and that's also been cancelled and rescheduled for next year. So I'm hoping that they will both go ahead because they're both brilliant events.
How does the classic TT differ to the current TT? Is it different sets of bikes, or is it different sets of bike and different set of people? If that makes sense.
Try and get as many famous riders as they can, but they are on classic bikes basically, and it's just 4 races around the circuit on what they describe as the most exotic machines from days gone by. But they do try and get as many riders from the normal TT or normal, road racing as they can to take part and ride old bikes from bygone, I suppose.
Could I ask something?
Please.
Go ahead.
So basically, as much as I don't find myself watching it, I am fascinated by it. But seeing all these events, that I just mentioned there, and I forgot to mention the Isle of Wight one. I would be interested to see how that works. I was always wondering, does that actually count towards a championship, or is each individual race itself considered like a championship of its own, and they don't if you compete in all of them and get the best finishes you can, it doesn't count towards like a points tally for like the Road Racing World Championship or something?
No, I think they're all separate races as far as I know. I think there are main races.
No, what I mean by that is how in MotoGP,
yeah,
the races we've had so far, they count towards like a championship. There isn't is this the same for road racing?
No, I think with the TT, each race that they do are separate races. They're that individual races, and you're a winner of that race. It doesn't count to anything. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that is the situation with that.
Right.
But I do hope the Isle of Wight road race does come off. It has been announced for October 2020, but no date has been given yet. So I'm really hoping that will come off. And it's a 12.4 mile circuit on the south of the Isle of Wight. And the course will incorporate a 5 mile blast along the coastal military road. So it all looks really exciting. I just hope it does come off, because that would be, for me personally, more accessible than to go to the Isle of Man. Yeah, hope so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I was going to just say, it should be far more accessible, but it'd be interesting. And after what happened with the Wales GP, which was going to take over, the Wales circuit, which was going to take over from Silverstone, I hope what happened to that circuit doesn't actually happen to the Isle of Wight race, because it would be so sad, even though the Wales circuit had some major difficulties and it was a non-starter in reality. But hopefully this isn't, and it will go ahead.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. May I ask, Taras, are you saying that the Isle of Wight TT wouldn't incorporate public roads, and instead it would be its own? Because what you're talking about there with the Welsh Circuit of Wales in Ebbw Vale, that was a permanent racing facility like Silverstone, but
yes,
wouldn't the Isle of Wight TT use public roads like the Isle of Man TT?
As far as I know, that it is public roads. It would make sense that it is public roads, and it's such a large. It's 12 kilometres, isn't it, Karen?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is on public roads. I think there's some of it on a military road. I think 5 miles is on a military road, and the rest of the 12-mile course is on a public road. Yes.
I'm interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, it will be interesting. Hope it comes off. So World Superbikes. So that's lots been happening in that. We were lucky enough to have one round before lockdown at the end of February, beginning of March. And that was back at Phillip Island in Australia. And Raz Gatlioglu, I shall now call him Raz, made a really, really great start to the season. He actually won that race. And Scott Redding managed second in both the races. And then I don't know if you managed to see a couple of weekends ago, the racing, and it was Jonathan Ray had a pretty good weekend, pretty much mopping up all the races for that weekend in Portimao. Did you guys see it? Luca, did you manage to see it?
I have a lot, because understandably so, with all of the motorsport happening in such a compact schedule, I'm often having to like put my fingers in all these pies. And eventually I'm going to miss a few, but I do like to eventually flick through to see how things are going. Like if you've got like British touring cars, British superbikes, World Superbikes, Formula 3, Formula 1, etc. But I have been keeping close tabs on it. I've been very impressed. By the way, I know you don't want to butcher the Turkish riders' names. I do what the commentators do, just call him Toprak, his first name, which is what I'll do when referring to him. Okay. Toprak has, I remember hearing that Alex Lowe's and Toprak, I seem to remember it was the Suzuka 8 Hours. Toprak was riding with Leon Haslam and Jonathan Ray. And supposedly Toprak didn't get enough race distance, and that really annoyed him, and that's what caused him to move to Yamaha. And then Alex Lowe's takes that opportunity to go ride for the main Kawasaki team. And both moves seem to have worked out very well for them, but especially Scott Redding, who I've been backing for many years. I was very happy for him when he won the British Superbikes last year. I seem to always remember the commentators when he was in Moto2 and MotoGP saying that his style would very much suit a superbike. And so it proves is that he goes and wins BSB. And I was interested to see how he would go in World Superbikes. He was obviously taking the ride of Alvaro Bautista, who was off to Honda. Now, Bautista is the very fine example of no matter how dominant you are, you can all go south. Because I seem to remember he won like 11 races in a row last year, like from the start of the season. And Ray was like second in all but one, where he was third. And then Bautista started dropping it in the middle of races following on from that, and Ray soared to a 5th title. So when I saw that Scott Redding actually managed to win in Jerez, the first race after lockdown, I think it was the first and one of the races within the next round after lockdown, I was very, very pleased for him, very impressed. I was, again, hoping someone would take it to Ray, which may be quite hypocritical of me since I wasn't that big of a fan of Bautista being that very rider. But in the end, that didn't happen. I do hope that the World Superbike season continues like this. I would like to see Ray not have an easy run to it, even if he does win a 6th title. And to think that, sorry if I'm waffling on, but to think that Ray has spent the last 5-6 seasons on the Kawasaki to win every time, and all the years leading up to then, he was on an underfunded, underpowered, under everything Honda. Imagine how successful he could have been. Like, who knows? Maybe he was a late bloomer, but we'll never know because his machinery let him down all that time beforehand. So yeah, that's my thoughts on World Superbikes so far this year.
Taras, do you have any thoughts on World Superbikes?
He's muted himself.
Okay. All right. Well, the next round of World Superbikes is in Aragon on the 28th to the 30th of August. So I'm really looking forward to that. Should be another great weekend. I think championship-wise, it's really between Ray and Redding at the moment. But I would really like Toprak to be up there because I just really like him, and he's certainly an up-and-coming young rider who I think will go far. So let's hope anyway. So that's about it really. We've covered the main areas, and we hope to get together and do another podcast with some more details for you, with races and more in-depth details of what's going on and what your predictions might be for the coming season. So really, that's all we've really got to say to you today. Just wanted to say thank you all for listening. My name is Karen Bristow, and you can find me on Twitter at BikerCaz6. Luca?
You can find me on Twitter at RedLuca56, and you can find Taras at CrustyLicious on Twitter.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed our podcast, and we hope to see you out on track soon. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.